Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghost and Spirits Special Edition video. Well, I teased this the other day with regards to making a video of my trip there to Yoakum, Texas for a special investigation that we did myself along with the group I'm in called Spectra. I've already posted most of this information on my Patreon channel, so if you haven't had a chance, you can sign up for just $1 and then you'll see that info there. But I thought I would highlight some very important things that we came across with on our trip. This was definitely a doozy. We encountered there an entity that attacked us several times. And so when I mentioned and I teased the info last time, as far as it being something that was very, very memorable, you'll see why as I present the information here. But yes, if also if you haven't had a chance, check out our Facebook page, the one that we have for our group. Just go to Facebook and type in SPCTRE Spectra, and then it'll bring up that option too. And then you'll see a bunch of photos that I took of my trip there as well. So let's go ahead and let's start all this information associated with the trip down to the Yoakum Hospital. So the Yoakum Hospital, if you don't know where it's at, it's in Yoakum, Texas, which is probably about an hour and a half or so southeast of Austin. Depending on where you're at in Central Texas, you give it about 2 hours and then you'll get there on your own. This is a place that used to be lively for the longest time, a couple of decades in fact. I got a brief tour there from one of the now caretakers there, and they stated that eventually it closed in the early 90s. I don't know if it was just that sudden or if it was just something that was planned, but either way though, if you go there to this day, like if you schedule a tour, either a private one or more along the lines of a public one, then when you go there you'll still see many pieces of equipment left from the closing of the day. Quite eerie. It's almost like urban decay, like I've posted in some of my other photos. But yes, we scheduled a private tour there, myself and the group I'm in, and then that way we could have stayed there the whole night. It's just that these encounters that we had kind of made big changes to our plans. So we showed up, and then we decided to go ahead and start the investigation. Some of you have seen my live streams, in fact, of it. So if you haven't had a chance as well, I have 4 videos associated with my live streams, and then that way you get to see some of our investigations in person. This video, though, will go into more highlights as to what occurred. Right off the bat, though, we noticed that there was a big change associated with this trip. We've been there before, last year, in fact. It was the first time I was there. I think most of my group has been there as well. Like, that was their first time, too. But right off the bat, we noticed a big change. It was a lot more negative this go around. And here's what I mean. Last time, we had a good amount of interaction with the ghostly children that were there. Apparently, this place houses about 32 different ghosts, different entities who, for one reason or another, have stuck around at that location. Most of those ghosts are just 100% friendly. Like, you have the children there that love to interact with people. They've been known to make noises, to move objects, especially when it comes to women. I think they pull hair, and then they also pull pants or skirts to make their presence known. But if you bring toys, or there already are toys there as well, as you've seen in these photos, then you can have them interact with these toys too. And we had a good amount of such interaction last time. This time, though, it was none. I don't recall any situation as far as any ghostly children making their presence known. We're actually still reviewing the evidence, though, because most of us took our own separate pieces of evidence, and so if something comes up, you'll see that on the Spectra page. But we think it had to do with this, as far as the more negative stance. You see this cuddly looking teddy bear there in this picture. It looks innocent enough, but actually there's something else happening with it. Apparently, recently, I don't know how far back, but it was recent enough, there were a group of witches that also had a private tour of that place. I don't know, though, if these witches were there like from their own group or if they were there individually, like at the same time. But either way, though, we were told that the witches were holding some kind of seance or something else to try to help the children. That's at least the info that we got. We don't know 100% exactly what happened because we weren't there, but the teddy bear was brought along by them, and it was placed with some kind of I don't know, enchantment or some kind of spell, something to as a gift to try to draw out more of the children. This room, in fact, I believe it used to be one of the daycare centers for the location, a room where a lot of children were there as well. Back when the hospital was basically up and about, but we think that what occurred is whatever this action was from the witches, it kind of drew out another negative entity, a guy by the name of either Edward or Edgar. We can't remember. We haven't really been able to 100% decipher which is which, like which name is the correct one. But for the sake of this video and then the post I did on Patreon, I'll just call him Edward. But Edward is a bad ghost. He's one of those 32 ghosts, but he is the worst one within the entire complex. He is one that tries to control everyone as far as the ghosts there. Like, he keeps them away, he shies them away. He basically does confrontations with us too. So we believe that these witches, in doing their actions, either innocently enough or something else entirely different, they in turn may have caused something bad with Edward, like as a form of retaliation. Because ever since we entered that room and then we started to encounter other things from Edward, it just turned into from bad to worse. So we think it all started essentially with whatever was occurring with the witches. And luckily, I did not touch the teddy bear, because apparently, if you do whatever the witches were working with, then it's supposed to be like bad stuff. But innocently, if I just took a bunch of pictures as close as possible, but that was about it. But nothing, we didn't get absolutely nothing associated with this room. We even left a ball there for a couple of hours with a noted spot to see upon return if anything moved, if anything at all caused it to change. But no, it pretty much stayed as is. Not like last time. I believe last time, in fact, we left the ball in one of the rooms, and then when we came back, it was moved. And not like it was like rolled over like a couple of inches. No, it was like in a completely different area. So in this case, no, nothing occurred in this room. Then we went to the next place, another place that we had a good amount of lively activity last time, and that was on the second floor. This room had a good amount of reception because it used to be a place for newborns, and then also it looked like it was a place where it just had a lot of interactions from people that were staying there and then people that were also working there. And then also there's an infamous room there, room 206, which is a place that apparently has some bad juju associated with it. But we were there last time getting some good interaction with the children, and we tried to, again, like, we tried to call them out. We tried to use one of our investigators in a motherly voice to try to do so as well. Nothing, not a single bit of information as far as the presence of the children. But here's where we essentially started to have Edward once again attack us. Luckily though, in my situation, these things never seem to impact me. Again, either it's good or bad, but I just don't have that magic touch when it comes to interacting with ghosts. Some of our other investigators though do have that. They have that special connection with the with ghosts, not necessarily like where they're seeing ghosts everywhere around them, more along the lines of they can sense when a ghost is here, or they can sense the mood of the room, stuff like that. Very, very lighthearted stuff. So in that case, we had several people there that were stating that yes, it looks like there was something bad that was going on with this place. This guy Edward, though, he eventually started to communicate with us through one of these boxes that we have. I believe it's called the RF modulator. It's one of those things that just skits through multiple channels very, very quickly, and is supposed to pronounce words. One of our investigators, Nancy, she has a good connection with ghosts, and they're able to communicate with her more frequently than others through this piece of equipment. So we always have her have her put on headphones, that way she cannot hear what's happening outside. She'll just basically blurt the words that happen to come out. And the idea is, creates a form of integrity, because we're asking questions, she cannot hear the questions, but through her device she's responding to those questions intelligently. So that's how it works, and it worked out really well almost too good this time, because right off the bat we were asking several things, and then Edward was responding something along the lines of "You can't make me leave, get out." I think it was another one referring to the children as well. Stuff that we would just say, that he would respond to immediately. This was pretty bad at this point, because he was also attacking Nancy directly by both breathing on the back of her neck, and then also apparently causing her to hear very profane things, profanity, in other words, through the headphones. I think at one point she might have said something along the lines of "You can't make me, bitch," something like that, with regards to this ghost, this Edward, making his presence known, like her trying to get him away, and then him responding in that manner. In my case, it took a freaky turn, because eventually Nancy decided to walk straight towards where she sensed this Edward was, and that was near room 206. I decided to go there as well to follow her. And then after she left the room, I wanted to inspect the room myself. And then her, again speaking through that piece of equipment, she stated out loud, like the ghost, in other words, communicating through that equipment, "Get out." Like it was that ghost telling me right then and there, right as I was about to walk into the door, it was telling me to get out. So that freaked me out as well. Then there was another part too where we also sensed Edward. He seemed to be just hopping in left and right. Like he would appear in one room. In fact, at one point, our lead investigator Jerry Ray, he said he saw a shadow dart both in the first floor behind some lights, and then also towards the far distance on the second floor, towards the very far corner of a hallway. We think that might have been Edward as well. So he moves throughout the entire building very quickly. And so at one point, the lead investigator sensed that he had moved behind us towards this hallway area that you're looking at here. I eventually decided to move close to that area too, because I wanted to find out exactly how much evidence I could capture. But for some reason, and this is, that little thing, that little buzzing sound that happens in the back of your head that tells you, danger, danger. I thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't go that far into that hallway, because Jerry was stating that they sensed that he was back there, but he was actually like leaning against this wall. The one that you see here with the door open, imagine leaning right next to that door, kind of like leaning against it, arms crossed, and then just staring back at us. That freaked me out, because that all seemed very sinister. Here was this thing, this Edward, who we don't know exactly who he was originally, like what he was doing there as far as the hospital, what his connection is. We don't have that info, unfortunately, but we thought but he was stating that at that time there he was leaning against that wall, staring back at us, almost like in a taunting manner. Like he can't get to us directly, but he can get to us as close as possible. And that freaked me out, because from my perspective, most of the time I'm ready to jump into these things. Like I'm ready to go. Like at Camp Ford, whenever someone told me that there was a very haunted bridge there that has a soldier that doesn't like necessarily you walking across that bridge, there I was walking across the bridge. Or also in San Angelo, Texas, if you go to Fort what's it called, Fort Concho. If you go there, then there's a Sergeant Cunningham that does not like you roaming around the first floor of one of the locations there. Well, guess where I was? I was obviously on the first floor, spending a good amount of time actively calling out to Sergeant Cunningham. This case, though, I decided to stay back. Like it was that strong buzzing in my head that was telling me, you know what, don't push your luck this time. If they're saying that he's right there and he's staring back at us in a menacing manner, don't necessarily walk back towards that area. Isn't that freaky? I mean, you would have to be there to truly understand the unsettling level of discomfort that this was. Like at most points, and when I do these ghost investigations, I'm loving all these interactions. This time though, just constant attacks by Edward, not only through the RF modulator but also physical attacks, keeping the children away. And then seeing him in terms of shadows, and then the overall negative energy. It's just bad stuff. So I decided to stay away. And then things got even more physical with this. One of our other investigators, Brandon, he was behind me, last in line, as we were heading down some staircases. These are the staircases that you normally find on the building towards the corner. Like you know how there's if there's an emergency fire or something, instead of using elevators, you use the stairwells. That's what this hospital had. So I was in front of him. He was leading the back on the back end, and all of a sudden, he decided to turn around and he said, "Don't do that again." Like he was very forceful the way he said it. And then when I asked Brandon what was occurring, he stated it was as if some presence, some entity decided to just rush towards him. Like there was this very powerful push, almost like an energy that was coming all at once straight towards the back of his area. And this was as he was walking down the stairwell. So whatever this was, and we presume it was Edward, he was in turn trying to cause Brandon to fall down the stairs, to physically go down the stairs and cause great harm. And I've seen this kind of stuff happen on Ghost Adventures, but for now to see it live, to see it occur basically right in front of me, that also spooked me out. So all of these things occurring by this ghost Edward, who just still just created just an overall negative experience. The original plan was that I was going to spend all night there at the location, and some of the other investigators were also planning on that too. But it's just all this constant attacks, and then especially the idea of just having this guy, this sinister Edward, just being there throughout the entire night. I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna push my luck. In fact, some of the pictures you've seen, you might have seen like a distant chair off in the hallway, or you might have seen like a very, very creepy looking corner somewhere. That was the whole plan, was for me to go back throughout certain parts of the night and just spend that time by myself at those locations. And then that way I could live stream, take some more pics, do things that I've done like that in the past, like at the Gonzales Prison Museum. I do that frequently, where I go by myself to the cells and then just try to stay as long as I can to see if I can capture anything. But no, not in this case. The idea of being there like at 3 or 4 in the morning in one of those distant hallways just by myself, now that I've seen physical attacks from Edward, and in some cases like causing things, to try to cause great damage to some of our investigators. No way was that going to happen. Plus, I was imagining in my head, if you've seen in some of these pictures, you see a lot of things on the ceiling loosely hanging, stuff like the tiles or some other pieces of equipment hanging around here and there. I was thinking all it would take is just Edward or whomever this entity is to just push one slight little thing. If they have the power to push a ball across the floor, as it happened last time, then in this case, all it would take is just push a tiny little bit of debris and then cause something to fall on me from the ceiling. And I wasn't about to have that happen. Plus, there were open elevator shafts there too. No elevators inside. It was just basically, hitting the ground floor, a couple of floors below. And I could totally just imagine inspecting the side of it and then having something rush me from behind. There's no way. So I decided to just call it quits after that, which is the first time I've ever done that when it came to a situation like this, as far as calling it early, because calling it quits, still we stayed pretty late. Like I was there a little past 2 a.m., but in more other circumstances I would have stayed even longer. But I hope that all this info, all these pictures, all this environment that I created with Edward caused you to believe why I decided to do that too. And none of the other investigators stayed either as well throughout the night. It was a weird night, very spooky. It was definitely a feeling like we were exhausted by that point because of everything that occurred. There was also a blackout period that happened too, but we think it was more on the lines of electrical equipment malfunctioning, because we had the heater on and then we had a coffee maker on. So maybe all of that caused the entire place to black out. But that was another thing that was on the back of my mind too, because I could totally imagine me being there by myself and then all of a sudden everything being shut down, like all the lights, everything going off. Granted, I have a flashlight on my phone, but if these things drain energy and they drain my phone that quickly, imagine if something like that happens and I'll have a hard time finding my way out in this dangerous environment. So either way though, with regards to this visit, I called it off early, but I'm still interested in going back later this year or sometime next year. We're probably going to do it next year and see if this occurs. We've already been discussing with each other, though, that if this negative presence, this negative energy continues again, that'll probably be the last year that we're there because of what occurred. But other guys, what do you guys think? Yoakum Hospital, that's the special edition video here, where we essentially had to call it quits early because of everything that was occurring there. I do recommend, if you wanted to experience this on your own, to go do so. It is a place where you will have encounters like everything I just mentioned. So if you want some good evidence, then you'll be able to have almost guaranteed evidence when you go there. They do have weekly tours, more private ones. I don't know if they do it. When I say private, it's the difference between public. Like, public is more on the lines of, here's a certain Saturday, anyone can show up and buy a ticket, and then you're on your own. I think, though, they only do private ones, meaning you have to be in a group, and then this group, whichever investigative paranormal group you're in, then has to book it in advance, that kind of stuff. But if you do see an opportunity, though, with the Yoakum Hospital, and they're doing stuff on their own, more public, then yes, I do recommend it if you wanted to check it out. And if you do so, then be very careful. Go out there, take a bunch of pictures, videos, and so forth. Just don't do anything as far as taunting any of the ghosts there, because they are very real, especially with this Edward, who continuously makes his presence known, far more now than last time. So you don't want that guy essentially causing you any harm, but you will experience some ghostly experiences there too. So, but otherwise, if you have any comments, anything else you wanted to post, please do so below. Anybody been there to the Yoakum Hospital by any chance? If so, I would love to hear what your personal experiences are. And lastly, please check out again my Patreon channel. That's where I have more detailed info associated with everything I just mentioned, and then also our Spectra Facebook site, SPCTRE, and then you'll be able to see all the evidence that we've been capturing throughout that night. So, all right, everybody, thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.